And I first gone in 1983, and I made a friend, a brother that lived right behind the hotel where we were staying in Oberoi, in Abu Simbel, Aswan. And Muhammad took us on the felucca, the boat up and down, the happy, and he just explained everything to us. So we were friends. I came back in '87. Dr. Ben was a mythological figure. Every elderly African American man, everybody thought that was Dr. Ben. So everybody that came there was an elderly black man. Said, "You, Dr. Ben, Dr. Ben, Dr. Ben." So he was a mythological figure. And I was getting ready to go to the old Cataract Hotel where they were having a conference. And I was talking to Muhammad, and I said, "Well, Muhammad, we're not going to be able to hang out tonight because I'm going to go to a conference." He said, "Oh, okay, good." I said, "Yeah, Dr. Ben." He said, "You know Dr. Ben?" I said, "No, I'm here because of Dr. Ben." He said, "Can I come?" I said, "Sure." I said, "I'll bring you." So I told him when to meet me, and we went. You know how they have these doors that open and close for cars, okay? And so I'm going through, and I'm walking, and then I turn around, and I see Muhammad is at the attendant station, and I come back. And I say, "Muhammad, you want?" He said, "I can't." Because the attendant told him he can't go into the hotel. Okay, now shit, I'm having a Mississippi flashback right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, "No, you coming with me. I don't want to hear that Nubians can't go into this hotel." No. And the guy said, "I'm sorry, I can't let him in." I said, "Listen, there are close to 1,000 people in that hotel. If I go in that hotel and tell them that this brother can't get in here because he black, those 1,000 people that have half them rooms in that hotel are going to come down mad at you." I said, "You better call somebody because this brother's coming in with me." Long story short, he came in. The point I'm making is that what we didn't realize is that Nubians in Kemet were at the lowest rung. They were mistreated. Dr. Ben, when we'd go into the introduction, before we'd go to Kemet, we'd go and he would have like a thing to tell us, how we should act, be careful. He told the young ladies, do not be walking around the hotel in bathing suits. Make sure you have a robe on, So he would give us little guide. He said, "But also I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you where to spend your money." Okay? And so Dr. Ben made sure that we spent our money with black folk.
Yeah.
What Dr. Ben actually did, he changed the history of Egypt. Because what began to happen is that, look, I was a teacher. I came with $500. But there was doctors that came with thousands. Spent that money with them brothers and sisters. He brought them into an economic viability where they had to be invited into meetings, economic meetings. He made it so that many of the Nubians that were selling fruits and vegetables and statues and little pyramids made a great deal of money.
They was the only ones making money for the black people.
That's it. And we were spending all of our money with them. He changed history. This is what I say about Dr. Ben. And to please understand the power that Dr. Ben had, because he changed the history for black folk in Egypt.
And at least from my knowledge, he's the first one that introduced that Nubia came before Egypt.
Absolutely.
To my knowledge. You know what I mean? As far as in his lectures. You know what I mean? He said that Egypt was the child of the Nile Valley civilization. That was the baby. So if it's the baby and it started from Punt and came north, came down the Nile, because it flows from south to north, came down the Nile, it's only common sense that tells you, all right, it started from Punt, which is Somalia, Tanzania, Egypt, parts of Uganda, on up.
Right.
So that tells you, all right, they said that they came from Punt. They said their ancestors came from Punt, from the mountains of the north.
That's like the Missouri Mountains.
Now, if you're saying that you came from there and you went up, civilization just don't start immediately. So it obviously came up and from the west. You got to remember, the Sahara was tropical at one time.
Right.
So those people obviously had a level of civilization that was above a lot of other people. Because it was tropical, and it was like a savanna. So now you get a chance all day to see the stars clear. It's the only place that you can see the stars clear. Most of the stuff south was you in far, they had to clear it out. Then you see it. In the west, look at the Dogon. You know what I'm saying? They had the thing with the Sirius star. Zulu say they from Mars.
Now, let me look. I just want to tell you a sad story. I don't want to leave you in sadness, but I just want to tell you something that I think we all should realize. And that is, what Dr. Ben told the truth to my brother, I look forward, brother. No doubt. You take care, brother man. No doubt. Okay, now. Here's the story that I just, and I don't necessarily want to leave you with this, but just for us to think about. Because Dr. Ben was so controversial, our brother James Turner just joined the Ancestors. He was the one that coined the phrase Africana Studies at Cornell. He brought Dr. Ben to teach. But because Dr. Ben used to teach the truth, they got rid of him. Dr. Ben is taught in some of the major universities, but because he told the truth, he lost his job. He was never able to get tenure. Dr. Clark, one time I asked Dr. Clark, I said, Dr. Clark, how can I best help my people? He said, you really want to help your people? I said, yeah. He said, get a job. He said, because if you depend on your people for your livelihood, you're going to be very disappointed. Plus, you don't have a right to depend on them for what you should do for yourself. He said, and by the way, get a job with a good retirement plan. Dr. Ben, when he died, you know, people went to the funeral. I didn't go. And the reason why I didn't go was because when Dr. Ben first died, James Smalls called me and said, look, Dr. Ben has passed away. So I canceled a presentation I was scheduled to do in Cleveland so I could be there. I made it for a month later. I visited Dr. Ben when he was in the senior home, because it was right by Co-op City where I was. I used to visit him frequently. People used to steal from Dr. Ben. I had to go up there with some of my friends and say, look, you may not know who this man is, but if I ever hear that you steal from him again, we're going to talk. Don't you ever mess with him again, and anybody that messes with him, you make sure they don't mess with Dr. Ben. This was the position that Dr. Ben found himself in. With all that he said, as you said about the rabbi, he ended up in the Hebrew home for the aged. He depended on the very people that he was lambasting for his survival. We have to take care of those elders that are putting everything on the line for us. Dr. Ben put everything he had on the line. He used to work for free sometimes. Had he charged, had he played around with words and wanted to survive and get tenure, he could have done it. But he didn't. But he paid a price for that. Because they couldn't bury him for a month because they had to collect the money. This is Dr. Ben, the man that changed our history. And as long as we treat our elders that way, those who wish to oppress us will never worry about us. Because if we don't value our precious people, what do we think of ourselves? You see, Dr. Ben did things, Dr. Clark did things, Chancellor Williams, John G. Jackson.
And I was watching something with Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben when they was talking. Dr. Clark was talking about they had to get money together for Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was it was white atheist that published his last book, The Age of Gold and Silver. Margaret something, O'Hare, in charge of the Atheist Society, that supported him. When I visited him in Chicago, he was very disappointed in how things happened. Chancellor Williams too. I worked with Chancellor Williams in 1984. He was at that time blind. He was a phenomenal individual, but there was disappointment in how things had turned out. He had just lost a lot of his material when 1984. So that's just something about Dr. Ben. As great as he was, we should never have let him go out that way. And whenever I speak about Dr. Ben, I always say, you know, because now we have the elders like Dr. Wade Nobles, you know.
Dr. Small.
James Smalls, yeah. Brilliant. And put everything on the line. When that stuff broke, when Dr. Jeffries was talking about, he was at Empire State and they wanted to bring him down. And they went after him, brought him to court, sued him. James Smalls lost his job too. Because James Smalls and he were like Batman and Robin. You know, and they're still tight. They're still the same way. But, you know, you pay a price when you do this work. You know, you pay a price. I've watched a lot of the great scholars pay a price.